police officer and his 3 puppies got thrown out. Until a hidden $7 million truth emerged, they told him the puppies were worthless, just strays he should have left on the street. But the night someone put a $7 million price on their heads, Officer Evan Cooper realized something terrifying. The world wasn't hunting him. It was hunting them, and the smallest one already knew why. Rain hammered the porch roof so hard it sounded like the sky was coming apart. Evan Cooper stood in the doorway of his mother's house, uniform soaked through, 3 trembling puppies pressed against his boots like they were trying to hold the world together. Rex kept himself tall despite the storm, his sharp eyes tracking every movement inside the kitchen. Buddy wagged once, uncertain but hopeful. Finn hid behind Evan's ankle, shivering so hard his tiny bones vibrated. Across the room, Evan's mother crossed her arms. Her voice cracked like a verdict. "You either put those dogs outside or you leave with them. Tonight." Evan felt the blow before the words even finished landing. He'd expected anger. He hadn't expected exile. "Mom, they were freezing behind a dumpster. They wouldn't have made it an hour out there." His brother, Mark, slammed his beer on the table. "You're a cop, not some stray collector. We're done watching you ruin this house with your hero syndrome." The accusation hit harder than the rain. Evan swallowed, glancing down as Buddy pressed a paw to his boot like he understood every shard of the moment. Finn whimpered. Rex lifted his chin and stared back at Mark with a quiet, fearless challenge. Evan's mother pointed toward the open door. The storm wind whipped her hair. "Choose, Evan. Them or the roof over your head." For a moment Evan couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. This house had raised him. This kitchen had held every awful memory and every soft one, too. But the 3 lives at his feet were looking only at him, trusting him, waiting for his decision. He bent, scooped Finn into his arms, hooked Rex and Buddy's leashes with one motion, and stepped back. "I'm not abandoning them." The door shut behind him so hard it shook the porch. That sound felt permanent. The cold swallowed them instantly. Rain hit them sideways as Evan hurried down the street, jacket draped over Finn, Rex pacing ahead with alert confidence, Buddy pressing close, nose bumping Evan's knee as if trying to cheer him with every step. By the time they reached the bridge outside town, Evan's breath was a fog of exhaustion and disbelief. His police cruiser sat where he'd parked it earlier. Home, for now. He opened the back door and Rex leapt in first, shaking off water, tail stiff and proud. Buddy scrambled in after him, still wagging despite the storm. Finn clung to Evan until he set him gently onto the seat. All 3 curled together, forming a trembling knot of warmth. Evan slid into the driver's seat and shut the door. The silence hit him like a punch. His hands shook as he ran them over his face. He'd arrested dealers, broken up fights, held dying men in his arms, but nothing had felt as heavy as hearing his own family tell him he wasn't welcome. His phone vibrated. Captain Rowan's voice cut through the static. "Cooper, report tomorrow morning. There's been a complaint. You're suspended pending investigation for misuse of department property." Hanging up. The line died before Evan could breathe out a word. Misuse of property. Meaning the puppies. Meaning someone at the station had turned him in. A hollow laugh slipped out of him. Rex lifted his head, studying him, then rested a paw on Evan's shoulder from the gap between the seats. Finn crawled into Evan's lap entirely, small body shaking. Buddy curled against Evan's boot, desperate to be close. "You 3 picked the worst cop in Maryland." Evan whispered, voice cracking. A tap on the window startled him. The puppies tensed instantly. Rex growled low, ready. Evan looked up to see a familiar face under the bridge lights. Old Walter, the homeless man who drifted in and out of town for years, stood there with his patched coat and sharp eyes. "Saw you get tossed out," he said quietly. "People treat dogs better than that." Evan cracked the window. Rough night, Walt. The old man nodded, then pressed something thick and worn into Evan's hand. A heavy envelope, edges softened by time. Some man in a suit left this for you. Said it was important. Told me to wait until you came back here. Said you would. Evan's pulse jumped. Who? Why? Walt shrugged. Didn't give a name. Just said you'd understand. He walked away before Evan could ask more. Inside the envelope lay old documents with foreign bank stamps, a faded photograph of 3 dogs that looked shockingly like Rex, Buddy, and Finn. And at the bottom, a printed check. $7 million. Payable to Rex, Buddy, Finn Guardian, Evan Cooper. For a moment, Evan's vision blurred. He read it again, slower. The numbers didn't change. Buddy's nose bumped his elbow. Rex stared with sharp focus, as if reading Evan's reaction. Finn whimpered and pressed closer. What is this? Evan whispered. A trap? A miracle? A mistake? But deep down, in the space between fear and instinct, he felt something shifting. Something old and unfinished. Something that didn't belong to luck. Rex nudged the photo with his snout and barked once, low and certain, like a signal, as if saying the night wasn't done with them yet. Evan tightened his grip on the envelope. Rain pounded the roof. His job hung by a thread. His family had cast him out. But in his arms were 3 lives someone thought were worth $7 million. His world was collapsing, but a door he'd never known existed had just creaked open. And whatever waited behind it was bigger than the storm outside. Evan barely slept. The storm eased just before dawn, leaving the air cold and metallic under the bridge. The puppies were curled, against him in a warm pile, but Rex was awake, head lifting at every distant sound. That dog had the instincts of a trained canine despite being barely 6 months old. When Evan opened the cruiser door to let them stretch their legs, Rex stepped out first, stiff and alert, nose cutting through the damp air like a blade. Buddy chased a floating leaf, oblivious. Finn stayed pressed to Evan's pant leg, trembling in that way he did whenever something felt off. Rex suddenly froze. His ears pricked forward, his body lined up, tight as a drawn bow. Evan felt the shift a second too late. Someone was watching them. He straightened, scanning under the bridge and across the empty lot. Nothing moved. No footsteps. No rustle. But Rex wasn't wrong. That dog reacted to intention, not noise. Easy, Buddy, Evan murmured, kneeling. What do you see? Rex didn't look at him. He stared into the trees beyond the guardrail, growling low in his chest. Buddy stopped playing. Finn whimpered. Evan stepped closer to Rex, squinting. A branch shifted where the wind didn't reach. Someone was out there. Someone who knew how to stay still. His instincts, sharpened by years in uniform, locked into place. He reached for Finn to lift him back into the cruiser, but Finn winced when Evan picked him up. The collar was too tight. Evan frowned, rolling the small puppy onto his lap, feeling for anything snagged in the fabric. His fingers brushed something cold. He parted the collar seam and froze. A tiny black disc, no larger than a button, was stitched beneath the lining. Evan's stomach dropped. A tracker, or a mic, possibly both. His pulse kicked hard. His breath grew sharp. Buddy barked once at the tension in his voice. It's okay, he whispered to them, though it was a lie. It's not okay. He ripped the collar open and tore the device free. Rex flinched at the sound, then barked sharply, facing the trees again. The shadows shifted. Someone stepped out. He was tall, lean, with silver hair pulled back cleanly, and a dark coat that seemed too dry for someone walking through wet woods. He walked like a man who expected others to fear him. "Morning, Officer Cooper," the stranger said, hands held loosely at his sides. "Call me Gaines." Evan's fingers tightened around Finn. "How do you know my name?" Gaines smiled without warmth. I need something that does not belong to you. A check. $7 million. It was meant to be retrieved quietly. I'm here to take it back. Buddy barked. Finn burrowed into Evan's jacket. Rex stepped in front of all three, shoulders squared, the little growl in his chest rising in warning. Evan kept his voice steady. The check wasn't addressed to you. It wasn't addressed to you either. Gaines moved a step closer. Rex snapped, teeth flashing in a quick warning strike that made the man stop instantly. That dog is going to be a problem, Gaines said softly. He reached inside his coat. Rex lunged. The bark that tore out of him wasn't puppy-like. It was a full, resonant roar of instinct. Buddy joined him, yelping in fierce chaos. Finn whined but didn't run. Evan shoved the device into his pocket and grabbed all three leashes. Move now! He sprinted toward the cruiser, dragging the dogs with him. Gaines shouted something behind them, the sound sharp enough to cut the morning air. Gravel sprayed under Evan's boots as he shoved Rex and Buddy inside. Finn slipped and nearly fell, but Evan caught him and threw him gently onto the seat. As he slammed the door, a metallic crack rang out. A bullet sparked off the cruiser's rear panel. Rex lurched forward, barking so hard his entire body shook. Buddy barked wildly beside him. Finn ducked under Rex's chest for safety. Evan dropped into the driver's seat, turned the ignition with shaking hands, and floored the gas. The tires screamed against wet pavement. He glimpsed Gaines in the mirror, expression unreadable, lowering a gun as the cruiser tore away. Nobody had ever tried to kill Evan before, and certainly not over money he didn't even want. Rex never took his eyes off the back window. He growled at every passing tree, every shadow, each mile between them and Gaines. Finn curled into Evan's thigh, small body trembling. Buddy paced along the seat like he was ready to fight the world if he had to. Evan reached over and put a hand on Rex's back. You saved us back there, he whispered. Rex looked at him with eyes too knowing for a creature so young. As they reached the edge of town, Evan pulled over behind an abandoned gas station. His breath finally broke free, hard and uneven. He set the mic device on the dashboard. Someone planted this on you, Finn. Someone knew exactly where to find you. Finn whimpered. Buddy licked Finn's face, trying to calm him. Rex stood over both of them, a quiet sentinel. Evan stared at the device, at the empty road, at the thick envelope tucked in his jacket. The check wasn't a gift. It was bait, the kind someone would kill for, the kind someone already had a plan for. He felt the weight of the three puppies pressing against him, forming the only circle of trust he had left. And for the first time since the storm, Evan understood something he hadn't let himself admit. He wasn't caught in bad luck. He was caught in something bigger, older, and far more dangerous than he knew. And whatever this was, he wasn't facing it alone. Rex lifted his head, barked once toward the open horizon, and Evan felt it like a vow. The danger wasn't coming. It was already here. The sun had barely broken through the clouds when Evan pulled into the back lot of the county forensics lab. The brick building looked asleep, but one window on the second floor still glowed. Marissa Hale never left before finishing what she started. That was why Evan trusted her. That and the fact she'd been the one person who always treated him like he mattered. Rex jumped out first, nose sweeping the air. Buddy followed, bouncing despite the long night. Finn stayed close to Evan's heel, eyes wide, ears tucked. Every loud sound made him flinch. Evan kept a hand on his head the whole walk to the service entrance. When Marissa opened the door, her hair was a mess and her coffee was barely more than cold sludge, but her eyes widened the second she saw the puppies. You weren't kidding, she breathed. You really adopted 3. They adopted me, Evan said. His voice gave away more than he meant it to. Marissa's eyes softened, but she stepped aside without asking questions. Inside the lab, Rex sniffed every surface with sharp precision, as if mapping threats and exits. Buddy explored with unfiltered joy, nose pressed into every drawer crack. Finn stuck to Marissa like she was the only safe thing in the room. "All right, show me what you brought," she said. Evan placed the envelope on the metal table. The check, the foreign documents, the photo of 3 shepherd mix dogs that looked uncannily like the ones now circling Marissa's feet. She frowned, picking up the check with gloves. "This isn't a scam. It's printed on Treasury-grade paper. Whoever sent this has serious resources." "And a shooter," Evan muttered. Marissa's head snapped up. "What?" He told her about the man in the woods, the shot that sparked off the cruiser, the tracker hidden in Finn's collar. As he spoke, Rexus settled beside him, leaning his weight into Evan's leg. Evan didn't even realize how badly he was shaking until Rex steadied him. Marissa examined the foreign documents next. Her brows knitted. These symbols look like internal transfer codes from an international non-profit. But there's no organization name, just an emblem. She slid the paper closer. It showed a circle with 3 silhouettes of dogs inside. Buddy barked once at the image, as if recognizing something. Marissa watched him, startled. Evan lowered his voice. "What does it mean?" Marissa hesitated, then pointed to a faded stamp on the corner. "I've seen this once. A rumor, really. A private reward network. A group that pays people who risk their lives to save animals from violence. Mostly underground. Mostly off the books." Evan blinked. "That's real. Real enough to scare someone into tracking you. Real enough to kill for," she said. The room felt colder. Finn whined and pressed his small head against Evan's boot. Evan bent down and lifted him, holding him gently against his chest. The puppy relaxed instantly, breathing against his neck. Marissa watched the moment, her voice lower. "Whoever gave you that money wasn't trying to reward you, Evan. They were passing something down. Something someone else wasn't supposed to lose." Rex climbed onto the chair beside Evan, sitting tall, staring at the table like a guard on duty. Marissa chuckled softly. "He's not just protective. He's reading the room better than you are." Evan didn't deny it. Rex had sensed things all morning, reacting seconds before anyone else. The dog wasn't just smart. He was intuitive in a way that felt almost human. Marissa scanned the rest of the files. A few pages were scorched, edges melted. She touched them carefully. "This looks like fire damage. Whatever building these came from must have burned recently." A flash of heat shot up Evan's spine. His breath hitched. Marissa looked up sharply. "You okay?" He didn't answer right away. The burned pages sparked something he'd kept buried. A memory, smoke, screaming, a door slamming shut. Suddenly, Evan was 10 years old again, hiding in a closet while his father threw dishes, while his mother cried, while the family dog scratched at the locked door trying to get to him. That dog had slept beside him every night until the day his father kicked it so hard it never stood again. Rex pushed his head under Evan's hand, grounding him in the present. The tremors in Evan's fingers eased. Buddy hopped up and put both paws on Evan's thigh, as if reminding him he wasn't alone. Finn snuggled under his chin, offering the softest kind of comfort. Marissa sat down slowly, her tone shifting. "I know that look, Evan. That envelope didn't just find you by accident." Evan forced the memory down. Someone knew who I was, what I used to be. They knew where I'd end up last night. Marissa nodded. "And they knew you'd choose to protect those 3, no matter what it cost you." She pointed to the burned pages again. "These weren't saved. They were smuggled out. Someone wanted this to survive." Evan stared at the circle emblem. 3 dogs in silhouette, 3 puppies now pressed against him. Nothing about this was coincidence. Marissa stood, pacing. Listen to me. Whoever fired at you last night wasn't after the money. They were after silence. If this group exists, then you're holding evidence of something big, maybe even criminal, and someone out there already knows that you have it. Rex stood as if confirming the threat, his ears angled toward the hallway. A low rumble built in his chest. Marissa froze. What's he doing? Evan whispered. He hears something. Rex walked to the door, planted himself there, and growled, deep and certain. Buddy joined him. Finn buried his head in Evan's jacket. Marissa checked the hallway. It was empty, but her face had turned pale. That dog is telling the truth. Someone is here. Evan scooped Finn with one arm and grabbed the documents with the other. Rex barked sharply, an urgent command. He wasn't guessing. He was reacting. Marissa locked the lab door behind them. Her voice shook as she pressed a badge into Evan's hand. Take the service exit. Go now. And Evan. He turned back. Whatever this is, she said quietly. It's not about $7 million. Someone is cleaning up loose ends. Evan felt the words settle like a blade between his ribs. Rex nudged him toward the exit. Buddy barked once, ready to run. Finn shivered, trusting him completely. Evan didn't hesitate. They left the lab and stepped into a world that suddenly felt hunted. Because someone wanted the truth buried, and 3 small dogs were the only reason it hadn't been buried already. The diner smelled like burned coffee and old stories. Evan sat in the corner booth where the windows were greasy enough to blur the view of the street. Rex lay under the table, head between his paws, eyes watching the entrance. Buddy sprawled beside him, tail slowly thumping. Finn curled so close to Evan's leg that he could feel every nervous breath. Marissa had slipped a name to him before he left the lab. Travis Caldwell, former Internal Affairs, retired early after pissing off the wrong people. If anyone knew what $7 million secret dollars meant inside a world that pretended not to see its own dirt, it would be him. The bell over the door jingled. A tall, broad man with a limp walked in, shoulders squared like he still wore a badge. His hair had gone mostly grey, but his eyes were sharp. He scanned the room once, clocked Evan and the dogs, then headed over. You look worse than the last time I saw you, Travis said, sliding into the booth. And back then you were bleeding. Evan tried for a smile. You still talk like IA. I still think like IA, Travis replied. That is different. He leaned down, palm open. Rex sniffed his hand, then gave the faintest nod of approval before licking once and returning to his watch. Buddy accepted a scratch without hesitation. Finn hesitated, then inched forward, finally pressing his head into Travis's rough fingers. I like them, Travis said. They trust the right people. I'm not sure I do, Evan answered. Travis's gaze hardened. Marissa said you brought a storm to her door. Money, burned documents, men with guns. Show me. Evan laid the envelope on the table, sliding the check and documents across. The photo of the 3 dogs rested on top, their silhouettes faded but still clear. Travis did not touch the check first. He picked up the photo. He stared at it for a long time. I've seen this before, he said finally. Evan's skin prickled. Where? In a file cabinet I was ordered to close and never open again. Internal Affairs looked into a series of suspicious donations about 10 years ago, large sums moving through animal charities. On paper, it was beautiful. Rescue organizations getting big checks from anonymous donors. In reality, some of those charities were shells. Money went in, got laundered, came out clean on the other side. Evan swallowed, using dogs and shelters to wash cash. Travis nodded. But there was a complication. Some of the money was actually being used for what it claimed to be. to reward people who risked their lives to save animals. Quiet heroes, cops, firefighters, strangers. The same emblem kept showing up in the paperwork. 3 dogs inside a circle. This emblem. He tapped the corner of one of the documents. So which was it? Evan asked. Dirty money or a genuine reward fund? Travis exhaled slowly. Both. Someone took a good idea and built a criminal pipeline around it. We were getting close. Then one night a shelter on the east side went up in flames. Files, records, animals. Gone. Evan's heart stumbled. His mouth went dry. The air in the diner felt thin. What was the shelter called? He asked, though he already knew. Travis watched him carefully. Haven Ridge. Your father was there that night. The world narrowed. The clink of dishes, the low murmur of conversations, the hiss from the kitchen, all of it faded under a rising rush of blood in Evan's ears. My father died in a car wreck, he said automatically. That is what they told us. Travis shook his head once. His car crashed, leaving Haven Ridge. They left out where he had been. Internal Affairs flagged his name in the investigation. Then the file disappeared. Case closed. Fire ruled accidental. Donations stopped. Paper trail went dead. Rex shifted under the table and pressed his head hard into Evan's knee, anchoring him. Buddy scooted closer. Finn climbed half into Evan's lap, sensing the shift in his breathing. So you think this $7 million came from that same fund? Evan said quietly. I do, Travis answered. And I think your father knew more about it than his record ever showed. Why send it to me? Travis shrugged slightly. Maybe you did something that put you on their list. Maybe someone out there thinks you're the kind of man your father was trying to be. Or maybe they just need a patsy to take the fall. He tapped the check. Either way, this makes you a target. The kind you do not get to walk away from. Evan stared at the numbers. They no longer looked like hope. They looked like a loaded gun. Someone already tried to kill me, he said. A guy named Gaines. Silver hair, clean suit. Said the money was not mine. Wanted the check back. At the name, Travis went still. Did he have a scar by his left ear? Yeah, you know him. Travis's jaw tightened. He used to work task force funding. This is bigger than I thought. Marissa had warned him. Whoever is watching you is not just after money. They want to close a chapter. Evan felt the truth land. His father. The fire. The vanished file. The emblem. The check made out to 3 puppies that looked far too familiar. He pushed away from the table, suddenly restless. I need to find out what my father was doing that night. I need to know why these dogs are tied to all of this. Travis's eyes flicked to Rex. Start by listening to him. Rex's ears snapped forward before Evan could ask what he meant. The dog's body changed. Muscles tensed. Head turned toward the parking lot window, nostrils flaring. Buddy copied him a second later. Finn tucked himself tighter into Evan's side. What is it, boy? Evan whispered. Rex gave a short, sharp bark and stared at the glass. His tail went stiff. No wag this time. Only warning. Travis was already sliding out of the booth. Those dogs just went from relaxed to wired. Who even knows you are meeting me here? Only Marissa, Evan said. Travis cursed under his breath. Internal Affairs. Rule 1. Assume the room is already compromised. He reached into his jacket, not for a gun, but for his phone. One glance at the screen and his mouth pressed into a line. Captain Rowan just pinged my location. He should not know I am here. Evan peered through the smeared window. Across the lot, a dark sedan idled with 2 silhouettes inside. A third figure leaned against the far wall near the dumpster, pretending to smoke, but watching the entrance too closely. They were boxed in. We can go out to the kitchen, Travis said. Rex growled, low and insistent, eyes fixed on the back hallway. He took 2 steps toward it, then stopped and swung his head back to the front door, whining hard, tail sweeping left once. He padded to the side exit by the bathrooms instead, looking back over his shoulder at Evan like he had made a choice. Travis watched, surprised. That is not random behavior. Evan followed Rex's gaze. The side door led to a narrow alley. No direct line of sight from the sedan. No cover from the man by the dumpster either. "You sure, Buddy?" Evan murmured. Rex barked once, decisive. Buddy echoed him immediately. Finn trembled, but when Rex moved, he moved. Travis nodded. "All right, we trust the dog." They moved quickly, trying not to draw attention. Rex trotted ahead, then suddenly stopped at the corner of the hallway and refused to move. His ears flattened. He sniffed the baseboard, then sneezed hard, pawing at a faint red smear on the tile that led towards the kitchen. Travis crouched, eyes narrowing. That is marker chalk. Cops use that when running drills. Someone marked the path they expected you to take. Evan's stomach rolled. So the kitchen exit would have been a funnel. Rex pushed his body against Evan's leg, nudging him down the hall towards the side door instead. Okay, Evan whispered. "We take your route." They slipped out the side. The cold air hit them like a slap. The alley smelled like wet brick and fryer grease. Rex hugged the wall, moving in a zigzag pattern, nose working overtime. Buddy stayed directly behind. Finn darted between Evan's ankles, but kept moving, trusting the larger bodies to shield him. Halfway down the alley, voices echoed from the street. One was familiar. He has to be in there somewhere. "Orders are to bring him in quiet," Rowan said. "Orders from who?" another voice asked. Rex froze, then pulled sharply on the leash, leading them toward a stack of pallets and a gap in the fence barely wide enough for a man to squeeze through. He whined once, glanced at Evan, and shoved his own body part-way through as if demonstrating. "You want us to crawl," Evan muttered. Rex gave a quick bark of agreement. Travis shook his head in disbelief. "This dog is running point like a seasoned K9. Evan shoved the envelope through first, then guided Finn, then Buddy. Rex slithered through the gap with practiced ease. Evan and Travis followed last, splinters scraping their shoulders. They emerged behind a neighboring laundromat, completely out of the sedan's line of sight. The cruiser still sat at the front of the diner lot, but now 2 uniformed officers flanked it, watching the doors. One of them, Ramirez, had been in Evan's academy class. The other was Chin. Both stared at the diner like they expected Evan to walk out in cuffs. Travis exhaled slowly. That was not a friendly pickup. "You think Rowan is in on this?" Evan asked. "I think someone above him is, and he is following orders without asking why." Rex sat at Evan's feet, chest expanding, eyes still scanning. He had not relaxed until the diner was completely out of sight. Buddy finally dared to wag again, and Finn let out a tiny sigh, sagging into Evan's leg. Evan knelt and wrapped an arm around Rex's neck, forehead pressed to the dog's fur. "You saved us. Twice." Rex leaned into him, solid and sure, like this was just what he did. Travis watched them, expression unreadable. "I spent 20 years working with cops, and I have seen less awareness in some full-grown officers than in that dog," he said. "You listen to him. You might live long enough to figure this out." Evan straightened, gripping the envelope tighter. His father had been at a mysterious shelter fire tied to dirty money and a secret network. The same symbol now followed his own steps. Men with badges were circling like sharks. And through it all, a young dog with sharp eyes and a steady heart was guiding him away from every trap. He looked at Travis. "If this started with my father, I need to know how he was involved. I need access to that closed file." Travis nodded. "Then we go where IA files go to disappear. Archives, off-site. No cameras, no questions." He glanced down at the puppies. "And we bring them. If someone is setting up an ambush there, I would rather have Rex in the room. Evan met Rex's gaze. For the first time, he felt less like a man walking into darkness and more like a man walking with a partner who never doubted the path. He had no idea what waited in those buried files. But he knew this much: he would not be facing it alone. The County Archives building sat on the edge of an empty industrial block, all steel shutters and forgotten promises. Travis had warned him that this place was where files went to be buried, but Evan didn't realize how literal that felt until he saw the locked doors and dark windows. Rex stood beside him, rigid and alert. Buddy paced in a small circle, energy buzzing in his paws. Finn pressed against the back of Evan's calf, trembling as if the air itself carried danger. Travis punched in a code, and the metal door clicked open. Inside, the building hummed with old fluorescent lights and dust. Rows of cabinets lined the room like rusted tombstones. "We get the file and get out," Travis said. "No distractions." Evan nodded. Rex lifted his head, sniffing the air. His whole posture tightened. Evan hesitated. "You smell something?" Rex growled, low and steady. Before Evan could ask what he sensed, a familiar voice echoed, behind them. "You always were Dad's favorite." Evan spun. Daniel Cooper stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, smile too relaxed to be honest. His half-brother. The same man who hadn't spoken to him in months. The same man who blamed Evan for everything wrong in the family. "Daniel, what the hell are you doing here?" Daniel shrugged. "Collecting my cut." Evan froze. "Your cut of what?" "Of that money." "Of course. You think Gaines didn't tell me what you're sitting on?" Rex lunged forward, teeth bared. Daniel flinched back, but only slightly. Travis stepped closer, voice cold. "You working for Gaines now?" "Working with him," Daniel corrected. "He pays better than this broken-down legacy you're chasing." Evan's stomach dropped. "You sold my location to him." Daniel's smile thinned. "You've always been the guy who lucks into everything. Mom gave you the house. Dad left you the name. Now you have $7 million. You don't even deserve it." Evan took a step forward, fists clenched. "That money isn't even mine." "Exactly," Daniel said. "And you're not keeping it." Behind him, 2 men stepped into the doorway. Not police, not official, hired muscle, paid to retrieve whatever Gaines believed was his. Rex barked sharply, body leaning forward like a fuse had been lit. Travis whispered, "Move." They ran. The hallway echoed with their footsteps, and the shouts behind them. Evan scooped Finn into his arms and sprinted down the back stairs. Buddy dashed ahead, barking warnings. Rex stayed at Evan's side, pushing him faster, guiding him around corners with perfect instinct. The exit opened into the parking lot behind the archives, wide, empty. Too exposed. Travis cursed under his breath. "They will box us in. Keep moving." They bolted toward the far end, but a black SUV screeched into the lot directly ahead. The doors flew open. Buddy barked once in confusion, skidding to a stop. Rex snarled, placing himself in front of Evan and Finn. The first man lunged. Rex launched into him before he could raise a hand. Teeth sank into the man's forearm. The man screamed, flinging his arm wildly, but Rex held until Evan yelled, "Rex, off!" Rex released instantly, then pivoted to block the next threat. Buddy dashed forward, barking fiercely, but a second man swung a metal pipe toward him. Buddy yelped and tumbled across the asphalt. Evan's heart cracked open. Buddy. Buddy tried to stand, but his front paw buckled. Blood streaked the ground beneath him. Rex spun, fury lighting his eyes, ready to tear the man's leg off, but the third attacker grabbed the smallest target. Finn. The puppy shrieked as rough hands lifted him by the neck. Evan shouted, "No, let him go." The man held Finn tighter. "Give us the dogs, Cooper, or this one screams for the last time." Finn's tiny body shook, mouth open in silent panic. Evan felt the world tunnel, rage burning through every nerve. Rex didn't wait. He launched with a sound Evan had never heard from him. Not a bark, not a growl. Something deeper, something primal. He struck the man's wrist with full force. The grip shattered. Finn fell, scrambling desperately to Evan's feet. Rex bit again, this time low, tearing at the man's calf. The attacker collapsed, screaming. Travis grabbed Evan's arm. "Go now!" Evan picked Finn up with shaking hands and ran toward Buddy. The puppy limped toward him, whimpering but alive. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. "Just give them the money, Evan. You're going to get someone killed." Evan faced him, chest heaving. "Someone already tried to kill me. You helped them find me." Daniel faltered. For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. Rex stepped in front of Evan again, chest square, blood on his muzzle, gaze locked on Daniel. Buddy limped to Evan's other side. Finn burrowed under Evan's chin. Daniel stared at the three dogs. He wasn't mocking now. He wasn't smirking. He was realizing something. "You'd risk your life for them," Daniel said quietly. Evan's voice broke. "They risk theirs for me." Sirens wailed in the distance. Gaines's men panicked, dragging the injured attacker toward the SUV. Daniel hesitated a second too long, then bolted after them. The SUV peeled out of the lot. Tires screeched. Silence followed. Evan collapsed to his knees beside Buddy. The puppy licked his hand weakly, tail tapping the asphalt as if trying to apologize for being hurt. "You're okay," Evan whispered, voice shaking. "I've got you." Rex pressed his forehead against Evan's shoulder, grounding him again. Finn nuzzled Buddy carefully, like he understood pain. Travis looked at the three dogs, then at Evan. "You understand it now, don't you? This isn't about money. It's about control, history, and your family is deeper in this than you realized." Evan wiped his face with the back of his sleeve. His chest ached, not from running, but from betrayal he hadn't been ready to face. Daniel hadn't just sold information. He had tried to sell out 3 innocent lives. The enemy wasn't only in the shadows. It was blood. Evan gathered the puppies, holding Buddy close, feeling Rex press against him in quiet loyalty, Finn shaking softly in his arms. He stood with a new kind of resolve. If his own family wanted him silenced, then the truth wasn't just dangerous. It was personal, and he wasn't running anymore. The call came in just after dusk. A structure fire on the east side of the county. Old building, possibly occupied. Evan barely listened to the dispatcher's trembling voice after hearing the address. The abandoned rescue center. The same one his father used to volunteer at. Rex was already pacing in the cruiser before Evan even turned the key. Buddy whined softly, ears pinned back. Finn trembled in Evan's lap, sensing fear before it had a name. When they pulled up to the property, the world had already turned orange. Flames rolled through the cracked roof like a living thing. Smoke boiled through the broken windows. The building groaned with heat, ready to collapse. Evan jumped out of the cruiser. There were no fire trucks yet, no sirens, no backup, just the sound of animals screaming inside. Rex barked once, sharp, commanding, then ran straight toward the burning doorway. "Rex, wait!" Evan sprinted after him, Buddy and Finn on his heels. But Rex didn't hesitate. He never did. He barreled into the smoke, trusting Evan to follow. Evan wrapped a cloth around his mouth and plunged inside. Heat slammed into him instantly. His lungs burned. The air tasted like metal and ash. Darkness twisted around him, broken only by flashes of flame licking up the walls. Rex led the way, nose low, ears high, weaving through the debris as if he'd mapped the hall in another life. Buddy stayed tight to Evan's left leg. Finn clung to his right. In the back room, they found the crates. 6 dogs, terrified, trapped, crying. Evan's chest cracked open at the sound. Buddy jumped onto a fallen beam and barked frantically. Rex pushed his shoulder into a metal latch until the crate swung open. Finn squeezed under a broken gate to get to the smaller animals. One by one, they freed them. But the fire roared harder. The ceiling buckled. The walls shook. Evan coughed so violently he stumbled. The smoke was slicing into his lungs. The animals clustered around his legs, relying on him the way he relied on Rex. "We're getting out," Evan choked. "Follow Rex. Stay with him." Rex seemed to understand. He barked sharply, rounding the group of rescued dogs, pushing them toward an escape path. Buddy held the rear, limping but determined. Finn stayed glued to a trembling terrier, nudging it forward. They were feet from the exit when a figure stepped out of the smoke. Gaines. His suit was streaked with soot, his eyes wild, his breath ragged. "You shouldn't be here, Cooper," he rasped. "Not tonight." Evan froze. Rex bristled, stepping between them. Gaines pointed to the burning building behind him. "This wasn't supposed to fall on you. It was a message. To the people watching. To the ones still trying to control what your father built." Evan's pulse slammed. "My father? What are you talking about?" Gaines laughed, but it wasn't joy. It was grief twisted into anger. "Your father and I founded the original protection network. The fund, the rescues, the safe houses, all of it. We saved animals the government refused to acknowledge. We took them from abusers who held power. Your father died protecting this mission." The fire crackled violently behind him, punctuating every word. Evan staggered back, choking on more than smoke. "You partnered with him? You worked together?" Gaines nodded, eyes glassy. "Until I broke, I thought money could strengthen the network, but money corrupts everything it touches. So I tried to take control back. I tried to reclaim what we built. But your father trusted you. Not me." A heavy beam cracked behind them. The building leaned, whining like a wounded beast. Gaines stepped forward, hands up. "I never meant to drag you into the war. But they want the fund, Cooper. They want the network buried. And you're standing in the way." Evan didn't have time to respond. A second explosion tore through the back wall. The blast threw both men into the dirt outside. Rex sprinted toward Evan, teeth clenched on his jacket, dragging him away from falling debris. Buddy herded the terrified rescued dogs away from the flames. Finn scrambled onto Evan's chest, whimpering, nudging him awake. Evan groaned, coughing out black smoke. His ears rang, his vision flickered. But he was alive. And Gaines was kneeling beside him, hands in the air, as police sirens wailed through the night. The first officers sprinted toward them, guns drawn. Evan struggled to rise. Gaines didn't fight, didn't run, just looked at Evan with a strange sorrow. "Don't let them take what your father died to protect," he whispered. Then the officers pulled him away, locking his wrists in cuffs. Evan stared after him, stunned, not because Gaines had surrendered, but because a truth bigger than the fire had finally surfaced. His father hadn't been a quiet volunteer. He had been the heart of a hidden network, a guardian of the voiceless, and Gaines was both friend and betrayer, ally and enemy, architect and saboteur. Rex placed his head on Evan's shoulder, grounding him. Buddy limped onto his lap, licking his hand shakily. Finn curled under his chin, tiny body shaking. Evan wrapped his arms around all three, a low breath leaving him like a vow. Whatever this network was, whatever danger was coming, he wasn't walking away. Not from the truth, not from the legacy, and definitely not from the dogs who had chosen him long before he knew why. The courthouse in Annapolis looked colder than usual that morning, not because of the weather, but because every set of eyes seemed fixed on Evan as he climbed the granite steps. Rex walked at his left side, head high and steady. Buddy limped slightly but refused to stay behind. Finn tucked himself close to Evan's leg, trembling at every passing noise. Inside, the hallway buzzed with reporters and police whispering rumors. Words like fraud, stolen funds, mental instability, and misconduct floated through the air. Evan ignored them all. He kept his hand on Finn's back, grounding himself. Marissa met him outside the courtroom with a firm nod. Travis followed behind her, jaw tight, a man ready to defend a truth he'd spent decades chasing. Zoe carried a binder of evidence and her calm confidence. "You ready?" Evan asked. Zoe placed a hand on his arm. "You tell the truth. Let the dogs show the rest." Rex pressed against Evan's thigh as if agreeing. Inside the courtroom, Judge Halverson presided over a packed room. The gallery wasn't just full, it was overflowing. Officers, neighbors, the homeless man who had given Evan the envelope, people from the rescue shelter down the block. And front row, arms crossed, expression cold, sat Daniel Cooper, the man who shared Evan's blood, but none of his loyalty. When the judge called the room to order, the prosecutor strode forward. "Your Honor, we argue that Officer Cooper illegally obtained control of a dormant charitable fund. We believe he intentionally manipulated records to appear as the rightful guardian of assets meant for community organizations." Daniel stood next, playing the grieving brother. Evan always wanted to be the hero. He said softly. But this time he went too far. He found money that wasn't his, and he tried to keep it. Evan stared at him, stunned not by the lies, but by how easily Daniel delivered them. Rex growled under his breath. Buddy's tail stiffened. Finn pressed harder into Evan's boot, whimpering. Zoe leaned forward. "Let them react if they need to," she whispered. "Their instincts matter." When the defense rose, Miss Edwards walked slowly, her posture dignified. "Your Honor, everything my client possesses was given through a legitimate international fund, a fund established to reward individuals who risk their lives to save animals. If anyone in this room doubts Officer Cooper's dedication, his record speaks for itself." Daniel shook his head dramatically, but the judge remained expressionless. Miss Edwards continued. "But there is more to this story. Motive, personal history, and why someone would try so hard to destroy Officer Cooper." Then she called Daniel to the stand. Daniel approached with a smugness he didn't bother hiding. He swore in, then launched into a rehearsed story about how Evan had always resented the family, about financial instability, about obsession with dogs. Evan clenched his teeth, but said nothing. Rex watched Daniel like a hawk. Buddy stared, unblinking. Finn trembled but refused to run. Daniel finished his lies. "Evan's not thinking clearly. He needs help, not money." When Miss Edwards stepped forward, her calm smile sharpened. "Daniel," she said, "do you recall ever interacting with these dogs before the night of the altercation?" Daniel scoffed. "I don't care about mutts. I never touched them." Miss Edwards nodded to Evan. Evan loosened Finn's leash. The puppy took one tentative step, then another. Then the moment hit. Finn saw Daniel's shoes. His body froze. Something old, something painful flickered in his eyes. The tiny puppy backed up so hard he hit Evan's leg, shaking violently. A tiny whine escaped him, a sound of recognition and terror. The entire courtroom went silent. Buddy barked suddenly, high-pitched and furious, staring directly at Daniel. Rex jumped forward, positioning himself between Evan and Daniel, chest puffed, tail stiff, eyes locked with burning certainty. The judge leaned forward. "Is there a reason the dogs are reacting this way?" Miss Edwards' voice was measured. "Your Honor, Finn is a rescued puppy. He was found with bruising consistent with abuse. These dogs have been in Evan's custody since the day he found them. They have never reacted violently toward anyone before. But they recognize something in Mr. Cooper. Daniel sputtered. "This is ridiculous. They're just animals." Then Rex growled. Not a warning, a verdict. A murmur rolled through the courtroom. Even the prosecutor shifted uncomfortably. Miss Edwards continued. "Your Honor, these dogs survived trauma. Animals remember abusers long after people forget. Finn's reaction is not behavioral confusion. It is recognition, and their collective response indicates something this court should not ignore." Daniel's face went pale. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "They're dogs. You can't trust them over me." The judge raised a hand. "That is enough, Mr. Cooper." He turned to the bench. "I find Officer Evan Cooper not guilty of all charges. Furthermore, the $7 million legally belongs to the fund, and Officer Cooper, as the appointed guardian for these animals, has rightful stewardship." A gasp spread through the room. Rex barked once, almost triumphant. Buddy limped forward and pressed against Evan's leg, tail wagging weakly. Finn peeked out, still scared but safe. Daniel slumped in his chair, speechless. Zoe hugged Evan. Marissa wiped tears. Travis looked at Rex as though he'd just watched a seasoned canine handler perform. Judge Halverson adjusted his glasses. "Officer Cooper, do you intend to use the funds for personal benefit?" Evan stood, voice steady. "No, Your Honor. I'm starting a rescue and rehabilitation center. For animals, for people, for anyone who needs a second chance." The judge nodded, expression softening. Then perhaps this court has witnessed the beginning of something good. As Evan walked out of the courtroom, reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. But he didn't stop for interviews. He knelt. Rex pressed his forehead into Evan's chest. Buddy flopped onto his lap, licking his chin. Finn curled under his arm, small but brave. "You three saved me." Evan murmured, "Now we save others." For the first time since this nightmare began, the air felt light. Justice had arrived, healing had begun. And Evan knew exactly what came next. A full year passed, and the chaos that once shadowed Evan Cooper's life slowly receded into something quieter, something almost gentle, the kind of calm that doesn't erase the storms, but grows from surviving them. On the southern edge of Annapolis, where an empty lot once sat forgotten, a new building now stood behind a wooden sign carved by hand. Second Paws Sanctuary. The letters were simple, steady, and warm, much like the man who had poured every scar and every hope into creating it. The sanctuary breathed with life. Morning sun spilled across the open yard, where dogs ran free and laughter rose like a familiar hymn. The smell of fresh hay, lavender oil, and new beginnings lived in the air. Inside the main therapy hall, white walls glowed with soft light. Calm voices, slow footsteps, and gentle encouragement filled the space. Rex worked first. He walked beside a Marine veteran named Luke Merriman, a man with hands that shook whenever sudden noise cracked the air. Rex sensed the tremors before anyone else. He pressed his body lightly against Luke's leg, anchoring him with a quiet certainty. Luke breathed deeper, leaning on the dog without shame. "Good boy, Rex," Luke whispered, voice rough but grateful. Rex didn't wag wildly like Buddy or bounce like Finn. He held his head steady, eyes soft and alert. The room quieted around them. A man at war with his own mind found a small, solid ground to stand on because one dog refused to leave his side. Evan watched from the doorway, arms crossed loosely. The sight still humbled him. Rex wasn't just doing therapy. He was returning something that had been taken from Luke long before. Peace. Across the courtyard, Buddy was already in motion. He darted through colorful foam tunnels and toy hoops, with a boy named Carter, 7 years old, diagnosed with moderate autism. Carter rarely spoke, but Buddy approached the world in a language that required no words. Side by side, they chased a striped beach ball across the grass. Carter giggled, a high, surprised sound that made his mother cry the first time she heard it, and Buddy barked with pure joy, circling around him. When Carter stopped, unsure, Buddy nudged his hand gently, guiding him back to play. The boy whispered quietly, just loud enough for Buddy to hear, "Buddy, stay." Buddy stayed. Of course he stayed. His wagging tail swept the grass like a paintbrush of sunlight. Finn had his own quiet kingdom. In a shaded corner of the sanctuary's reading room, a group of foster kids curled on beanbags, flipping through picture books. Finn lay right in the middle of them, belly up, paws loose, as if he were the safest blanket in the world. A girl named Elise, barely 9, rested her cheek against his chest. She had arrived months earlier, silent and angry, refusing touch. Finn never rushed her. He simply existed beside her until her anger softened enough to make room. Now she whispered stories into his fur. Every word trembled, but every word was hers. Finn listened as if every sentence mattered. Maybe it did. Evan stepped into the room, pausing to take in the sight. The smallest dog he'd rescued now carried the heaviest hearts with the gentlest patience. Finn's tail gave a soft flick when he sensed Evan nearby, but he didn't move. His job wasn't finished yet. Outside, the day unfolded with an easy rhythm. Volunteers cleaned kennels, watered plants, fixed fences. Travis Caldwell visited often, not in an investigator's role anymore, but in something closer to a mentor's seat. Zoe organized the afternoon classes, and Marissa spent weekends helping with behavioral assessments. The sanctuary had become more than a refuge. It was a bridge between broken and healing, between fear and trust, between the past and the breath of a new future. As noon crept in, Evan sat at one of the picnic tables, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. He didn't drink it. He just needed to hold something warm. Rex approached quietly, settling at his feet. Buddy leapt onto the bench without permission. Finn wiggled under Evan's elbow. This was their pack. Not perfect, not polished, but whole. "You three did this," Evan said softly. "The sanctuary, the calm, the lives changing around them. I just followed where you led." Buddy dropped a tennis ball on Evan's lap, tail wagging like a flag of victory. Finn nudged closer, his nose cold against Evan's wrist. Rex leaned his head into Evan's knee, the steady heartbeat of a guardian who had never once faltered. For a moment, Evan let himself breathe deeply. Slow, without fear. The kind of breath a man takes when he knows the world won't fall apart if he closes his eyes. A soft voice startled him. "You built something beautiful here, Evan." He turned. Luke stood with one hand on Rex's back, the other clutching a small medallion from his unit. His shaking had eased. Couldn't have done it without him. Evan replied, nodding at Rex. Luke smiled, eyes bright with gratitude that didn't need words. Across the yard, Carter laughed again, louder this time, while Buddy spun in circles. Elise giggled softly as Finn licked her cheek. Volunteers clapped when a shy old hound took his first steps outside after weeks of hiding. The sanctuary wasn't quiet in the way people expected. It was quiet like dawn, quiet like healing, quiet like a life rebuilt piece by piece, breath by breath, paw by paw. Evan stood, the dogs gathering around him instinctively. He rested a hand on each of their backs, feeling the pulse of 3 lives that had saved him just as much as he'd saved them. This piece didn't erase what happened. It didn't erase betrayal, danger, or grief. But it made space for something softer, A year after losing everything, Evan finally understood. Sometimes the aftermath isn't empty. Sometimes it's where all the gentle things choose to grow. The afternoon sun dipped low over Second Paw's sanctuary, turning the fields gold and the windows warm. Rex lay near Evan's feet, eyes half closed but alert in that quiet, loyal way. Buddy chased a rubber ball with 2 children from the foster home next door. Finn slept under Evan's chair, curled tight like a question mark waiting for an answer. And then the gate creaked. Evan looked up. A man stepped through, thin frame, long grey beard, clothes patched but clean. The same man who had handed Evan an envelope under a bridge almost 2 years ago. A ghost from the night everything changed. Rex stood immediately, tail raised, posture protective but curious. Buddy stopped mid-run and stared. Finn peeked out, recognizing the smell before the face. The old man removed his cap. "Evan Cooper. You built it." Evan rose slowly. "I didn't even know your name. Folks used to call me Hartley," he said, smiling softly. "But the name ain't what mattered. The job was." Evan gestured him inside. Hartley walked with careful steps, as if each footfall carried memories he wasn't sure he wanted to disturb. The sanctuary seemed to settle around him, sensing something familiar in the way he looked at the dogs, the land, the gentle chaos. He stopped near Rex. The dog stared up at him, then, unexpectedly, leaned forward and pressed his head against Hartley's hand. Buddy followed, sniffing and wagging. Finn inched closer, cautious but trusting. Hartley's voice cracked. They remember the network, even if they never knew it. Evan's pulse kicked. What network? Hartley turned toward him fully now, his eyes sharp beneath the softness. "Son, I wasn't just some drifter. I worked for the original benefactors of the Animal Rescue Fund, a private, off-the-record alliance. We looked for the rare ones, people who didn't walk past suffering, people who stopped." A chill slid through Evan. "That night under the bridge, you were watching me. Testing you," Hartley nodded. "The envelope wasn't a mistake. It was a passing of the torch. And you carried it exactly where it needed to go." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small metal object on a leather cord. A key. Old, heavy, carved with symbols Evan didn't recognize. "This," Hartley said, "was mine for 40 years. I am the keeper, the overseer of the sanctuary network. But there comes a time to pass the job on." He placed the key in Evan's hand. "Now it's yours." Evan's breath caught. "I'm not qualified for something like this." Rex nudged his knee as if disagreeing. Buddy barked once in approval. Finn rolled onto his back, tiny paws up, the smallest vote of confidence. Hartley's voice softened. "You built something from pain, but you built it for others. That's the only qualification that ever mattered." Before Evan could speak, the gate creaked again. Daniel stood there, not sharp, not polished, not arrogant. His shoulders slumped, eyes rimmed with regret, as if he'd been holding a weight he didn't know how to put down. Evan swallowed hard. "What do you want?" Daniel stepped forward slowly, hands visible, chin low, not submissive, not fearful. Honest, maybe for the first time. "To apologize," he said. "No excuses. I hurt you. I hurt them. I let money, anger, and lies screw up the only family I had left." Buddy growled once. Finn hid behind Evan's boot. Rex moved in front of Evan, not aggressive, but firm. Daniel lifted his hands. "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking for a chance to fix something in my life. Maybe start small. Clean kennels. Fix fences. Anything you'll let me do." Evan stared at him, the mix of old anger and new clarity twisting in his chest. Hartley whispered, "Legacy ain't just what you build. It's who you're willing to bring with you." For a moment, the sanctuary held its breath. Then Evan exhaled. Quiet, long, tired. You can start tomorrow, he said, but you mess up once. Once, and you're out. Daniel nodded quickly. Understood. Rex looked at Evan, as if scanning his face for doubt. Evan laid a hand on the dog's head. We don't heal by shutting the door, buddy. Daniel blinked fast, swallowing emotion. Thank you. Hartley smiled faintly. The network chose right. They walked through the sanctuary together. Daniel trailed behind, awe creeping into his expression as he watched Carter play chase with Buddy. Elise read stories to Finn, and Rex guide Luke through his breathing exercises. Hartley spoke softly. Money isn't legacy. Buildings aren't legacy. It's moments. It's mercy. It's the lives that ripple out from one good decision. Evan looked at the key in his hand. One rusty piece of metal. One promise. One path forward. He slipped it around his neck, the weight settling against his chest like something that had always belonged there. Rex barked lightly, as if sealing the vow. Finn pressed his tiny head into Evan's palm. Buddy dropped a stick at Daniel's feet, offering the first olive branch. Evan looked at Hartley. What now? Hartley said, You lead, and the world gets better because of it. In the slow evening light, with 3 dogs who had once been tossed away sitting proudly at his side, Evan understood something deep and quiet. The real $7 million treasure wasn't money. It was what you did with it, and who you became because of it. The studio lights were colder than Evan expected. Not hostile, just bright in the way truth often was. He sat across from the local news anchor, a woman with kind eyes and a practiced calm. Behind them, a large screen displayed an image of Second Paw's sanctuary. Rex standing tall, Buddy mid-leap, Finn curled beside a child reading a book. Rex sat at Evan's feet now, steady as stone. Buddy lounged under the chair, tail sweeping in slow arcs. Finn peeked from behind the leg of the table, unsure of the light, but unwilling to leave Evan's side. The anchor smiled gently. Officer Cooper, thank you for joining us today. The whole region has been following your story since the trial. Your sanctuary is already changing lives. But there's a question our viewers keep sending in. Evan nodded, bracing himself. That night, the anchor said softly, the night you were ambushed, when everything spiraled, how did you know the danger was real? The studio seemed to quiet. Even the producer behind the glass stilled. Evan reached down and rubbed Rex's head. The dog lifted his eyes, calm and certain. I didn't, Evan said. The anchor blinked, surprised. He did. Rex didn't move, but something in the room shifted. A presence. A truth that didn't need volume to be heard. Evan continued, voice steady. He heard something no human could. Not footsteps, not words, something deeper, something wrong. And he refused to ignore it. He put himself between me and danger before I even knew what was happening. Rex lifted his head higher, as if acknowledging the weight of that moment. Buddy nudged Evan's boot, the scar on, his leg still faint but visible under the studio lights. Finn edged forward, placing a tiny paw on Evan's shoe as if offering courage. The anchor leaned closer. So you believe these dogs saved your life? Evan smiled softly. They didn't just save my life. They saved who I became afterward. The anchor hesitated, as if feeling the pull of something bigger. Officer Cooper, there's been talk that you've taken on a new role in a wider network of rescue operations. Can you explain that? Evan exhaled, fingers brushing the key hidden beneath his shirt. Not fully. Not yet. But I can say this. Helping animals and people heal together. It's bigger than one sanctuary. Bigger than me. Rex thumped his tail once, controlled but firm. The anchor nodded with respect. Before we end, could you share something with our viewers? Something they can take with them? Evan looked into the camera. Really looked. past the lens, past the lights, straight into the living rooms, the phones, the quiet places where people watched because they needed to believe in something that still fought for good. He placed a hand on Rex's back. "These dogs don't look for glory," he said. "They don't ask for credit. They just know. They know when something's wrong. They know when someone needs them. And when they love with everything. No hesitation, no ego, just truth, pure and stubborn." Rex turned his head toward the camera. His eyes were steady, intelligent, ancient in a way no training could manufacture. The lens tightened on him, catching the golden flecks, the unspoken promise. "He's still guarding," Evan whispered. The anchor swallowed, voice barely above a breath. "It feels like he is." Fade to a soft silence. Not empty. Full. Evan leaned back in his chair. The dogs gathered around him in their natural formation. Rex at the front, Buddy at his left, Finn at his right. Before the director signaled the closing cut, Evan looked straight into the lens once more. "And now I'll ask you the same question that saved my life." The studio lights glimmered in Rex's eyes. "What's your story with a loyal pet?" The camera lingered for a heartbeat more, capturing Rex's final look. Calm, watchful, eternal. Then the screen dissolved into the Sanctuary logo, followed by a soft narrator's whisper, urging viewers to support the growing rescue community. And finally, to all German Shepherd lovers. Thank you for standing with us, because every story like this one begins with someone choosing to listen,